welcome back to A.R. Sales, aka the A.R.T podcast. I am A.R.T, and today I am joined by Wendi B, Dennison, author of Who Are We Fooling, which is book 1 in the Seeing Stars series. How are you doing?
I'm awesome. How are you?
Oh, outstanding and improving. So before we dive into anything, where can people find you? Website, Instagram?
Primarily, I tend to float around Instagram. Wendi B Dennison, just all one word, is my handle there. And then I also have a website, wendybdennison.com. And I also attempt Twitter sometimes, same handle there as well. But I'm not as great at that.
Yeah, Twitter's an interesting thing. Where
Yeah.
you'll hop on like the author Twitter, and it's all like rainbows and like just like very nice things, and you hop on just one little wrong thread, and it is things you didn't even know the internet still had. It was like, okay,
it's the rabbit hole.
Yeah, I thought that was like MySpace era. I didn't know we were still doing that.
No way.
But kind of going off that, and of course there's the God knows why. But talk to me about your start in writing. Was it a thing that happened at a young age to develop later?
No, it happened at a very, very young age. I think I was like 8, and my mom gave me her like super old, like 1994 college laptop. It's like this thick. I still have it. Yeah, it weighs like 80 pounds. And I was just like, I read from a really young age, so I just started kind of plunking out stories there. And it just kind of kept going my whole life. I never really stopped. It's like the one thing I've always done. And I was also a big reader when I was a kid, so it was kind of all I ever wanted to do.
Did you have a certain genre that you stick to? Like, what was the first stories that you were writing?
Okay, writing, it's kind of interesting because
well, I mean, if you were acting some, I want to hear that too.
Funnily enough, when I was a kid, my all I wanted to read was like ghost stories, monster stories, R.L. Stine, anything like that. Stephen King was actually like the first like adult book I read, and I was like 10.
Which
one? It was like, I read it.
Why is that everybody's first? It's crazy.
I know, it's weird because, okay, so it was like in my elementary school library. Don't know why. I think they saw a clown and put it in there on accident. I should not have been reading it, like in hindsight, looking at it now. But that was my first, and I was kind of hooked on it. But I tried writing horror like my whole life because it's my favorite to read, but I'm just like, I don't like have a knack for it in that way.
Horror, I think, is a very interesting genre in that, like, I think a lot of things inherently can be scary if you just like write it.
Yeah.
Like the amount of like really good comedies that like will just take like a dark turn for just a second. That's all you need. Yeah. All you need is the inception of the thought, and it's like, oh, that's actually kind of fucked up.
Exactly. You can find horror anywhere. It's pretty interesting. I think that's why it's my favorite genre to read.
Yeah, I mean, like, I like sci-fi a lot, and I think my favorite aspects of the sci-fi is every so often when you just like Interstellar, when the guy's like talking about the black hole, and you can just see his like, he's just a zombie. He's just like, yeah, I've been looking at the void for like 50 years. I want to die. like you feel that. You're like, oh my god, yeah. Like imagine that the level of like, time perception and distortion. Oh,
exactly. Like deep down in here, you feel it, and it's intense every time. That's a good one. I haven't thought about that one in a while.
Yeah, and what about like, how did your genre morph as you grew up, since you were blessed with having it at such a young age?
I think that I've always, admittedly, I've always been kind of a hopeless romantic.
Been there.
Not really sure why.
There, honestly.
I always will be. Like, it's just like at this point I just know it's who I am.
Inherent,
yeah, and I started trying that, and that's always flowed very naturally for me in terms of like what I write is love stories. So I just kind of stuck with that, and I ended up going to college for playwriting and screenwriting. So I actually started doing mostly playwriting because I wanted to like see my work kind of in front of me. But I don't know, I there's something about books and just like the fact that it kind of allows everyone to imagine everything the way they personally want to. I just think is kind of more personal, and I prefer it.
what type of reading struck you as a kid? And what I mean by that is not just like were you a Percy Jackson or Harry Potter fan, but more, when was the first time that you picked up a book and like it actually hit you to what writing is? You know what I mean? Like the truly be like, oh my God, this is like the pouring of human emotion. Like this is the essence of what like being a human is. Like this is crazy.
Um, I would say like I had a lot of books I liked when I was like a really young kid, but when I think about like the first time I read a book and it was like a profound impact on me
Hmm.
was gosh, what was a good one? I'm trying to think. There are a lot of them, if I'm being totally honest. What pops into my head first, and I wasn't that young when I read this book, but it's just kind of what pops into my head in terms of like the really like realizing like this is what it means to be human, would be I Am the Messenger by Marcus Zuzak.
Man, I don't know that one now. Tell me about it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. It's honestly at its like really at its core is really a very simple story.
Hmm.
Marcus Zuzak wrote The Book Thief, and he wrote Bridge of Clay, and he has a few other ones. He's really good, but I think that his writing in general really does tend to focus on just like that exactly is what it means to be human. Um, and it really is just kind of like at its bare bones the story of just like being the hero of your own story, no matter how regular you think you are.
Hmm. I like that a
And
lot.
it's very, very good. I like that's like one of those books I literally recommend to anybody. Like I don't care like who you
And
are. I recommend it to
what
anybody.
age was that for you?
Oh gosh, I Am the Messenger. I want to say, when did that come out? I was like in my early 20s, so it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that that's like the age for like things to like really start impacting you, you know?
yep, it's a young adult,
Yeah.
and that's yeah.
Like I think the first time I guess my answer is pretty basic. The first time I ever like feel like my brain woke up to writing was actually like in English class freshman year when we were going through Shakespeare. And the teacher was talking about it so passionately that I was actually paying attention instead of like, drawing in my notebook and like, trying to freestyle with my friends horribly, I might add. But, just not pay attention to class.
Yeah.
But he was talking about it so one day that was so passionately I had to pay attention. He was breaking down the line of a rose by any other name would be just as sweet. And he was talking about, was like, all right, now what he's saying is that like words in their essence mean nothing. Like all words are like little fumbled attempts to convey emotions between one another. And it was
Hmm.
like if we had lived in a parallel world where shit meant rose and rose meant shit, the difference of name wouldn't take away from the essence of what is a rose. Like
Yeah.
we would just use another word. And that right there just picked me up. I was like, oh shit, yeah. Like it really is. I just brought it to life right there. Like, I just like made it like immediately like metaphysical. I was like, oh yeah, that makes like a lot of sense. Like all of life is like that. Like it's not about the things that you say, it's the actions behind this, it's the emotion behind it. And like the fact that like writing a thing that somebody wrote hundreds of years back and made me hit that epiphany is when I realized writing was like pretty awesome. And like I mean like we're writers, so like to us it's the best shit ever, you know?
Yeah, exactly. But it is interesting to like think back on those moments, like because I remember specifically for me like when I was in high school, I want to say it was when we read The Crucible. And I remember that one. I
Oh
mean,
my
that's
god,
a
yeah.
play, and that's a play too, but that I remember had a very big impact on me. I remember like not being able to put that down, and there were like a few other like required readings that I felt that way about. I always loved like To Kill a Mockingbird. That was always that's still one of my all-time favorite books. um
Frankenstein is my like favorite like book that like you were
yeah,
forced to read and then you were like, oh wait a minute. It's
yeah.
amazing.
And then also there were a couple books that I used to hate when I was younger, and I reread them maybe like within the last couple years, and now I love them. Great Gatsby and Catcher in the Rye.
I feel like Great Gatsby is one of those things. Like, in its essence, it's one of those like things that it's required reading. And like when you're a kid, I mean, the book is about unrequited love. Like, how do you really know about that at 15? You
Hmm.
might understand that, like, if you're an emotional little kid, you might like, oh, she doesn't like me back, but like not to the level that adults feel it when it's like, life getting in the way of things.
Yeah, and the concept of, I remember we always talked about, this book is about the American dream. And
Mhm.
when you're, I think that when you're younger, you don't really understand what that means. And now as an adult, when you read back, like when I read that story back, or even when you like watch one of the movies or anything, you realize like what a dark concept that is. like in just in terms of like the Great Gatsby specifically is like, in my opinion, it's kind of dark. And I don't think I ever really realized how dark it was when I was younger.
Yeah, I mean, like one of my favorite comedian has the most depressing quote ever. It was the American dream is called that because you have to be asleep to believe in it.
Oh, that's
George Carlin, the
George
man.
Carlin.
Yeah, unreal.
Oh man.
Um, Now segueing into the book, how did all these things kind of like snowball into the original idea? And is this your first attempt at a novel?
Um, yeah, I tried my hand at the book, writing a book many times. But this particular story was a story that I just continued to come back to over and over and over again. Um, it started actually as a play that I wrote when I was in college. And they ended up doing it there as like a short play. And I realized pretty quickly after watching it that it was not meant to be a play. And so I was like, I gotta figure out something else to do with the story because I didn't want to abandon it. So it took like years of kind of like figuring out how to like adapt that to what it is now. So this was, and like once I finally got it going, this is like my first like real attempt at like being like, okay, I'm seriously gonna self-publish and I have to figure out how to get there on my own. So it's been a long process.
No. I finished writing my book, like, I put a stamp on it. I don't even know how many months ago. I just got the proof of paperback hand of God today. So I understand the process takes, I mean, unsurmountable amount of works. I cannot believe I said that word without missing. In my head, I knew I was gonna like make a mistake, and I actually said it right. I was like, oh my god. Um, but yeah, like it's weird though because it's like it's almost like a toxic relationship where you like it causes you so much annoyance, but you genuinely love it, and you'll go back to it tomorrow, no question asked.
Exactly.
You're right. You'll get ghosted for 9 hours. You get a text in the morning. You're responding in 15 minutes. You're there. You're bringing
Exactly.
coffee.
And you're always telling yourself, I'm going to take a break. I deserve this day for me. It doesn't need
Yeah.
to be about this right now.
No,
And then you
no.
wake up the next day and it's right there and you're
Yep.
like, I don't know who I'm kidding right now.
Yep. You get the booty call. I'll be over in 10 minutes. No problem.
Exactly. Yeah,
um,
exactly. 100%.
and then of course you do like, your 9 hours of editing, which is the walk of shame, basically. Uh, God,
Oh
but
God, it is.
there's nothing better though. It's
That's a
weird.
brilliant analogy.
Uh, um, but who are we fooling? There's something inherently that I love about that title, especially when it comes to the idea of romance and just your cover in general. Quite honestly, outside of her being a guest and you should being like go and pick up the book just to support indies, the cover in itself, you need to check it out. It's actually a really, really awesome cover. I look at it a lot. Like I love the minimalistic of it, and again, I love the just like when you read like a sci-fi book and like you like there's like a certain like I Robot, for example. If you're into sci-fi and you see a thing like I Robot, it's like, oh, that works. If you're into romance and you see something like Who Are We Fooling, it's like, oh shit. Like that immediately takes me back to 19 relationships, and it's like, oh, who are we fooling? You know what I mean? Oh my god, I'm not here. It's awesome. So please talk to me a little bit about it. Walk me through it.
I love that you brought up the cover because that is like honestly like one of my favorite parts about it. The art is not by me. Um, their Instagram handle is Wind by Fire on Instagram, in case anyone wants to go take a look because their
Yeah.
art's beautiful. But I knew for like I've settled into the genre of LGBT fiction and romance. And there is kind of a general theme in terms of like what a lot of the book covers look like. Not, and there's nothing, I don't have anything against anything. But I just kind of always had it like in the back of my mind that I wanted to do something different with the book cover, and I've always leaned towards like a minimalistic sort of artistic style with it. So I ended up like messaging like a bunch of artists, like trying to like get my like see who wanted to do my book cover. So the fact that I found her is just the best. Um, she has done, and she did all of the illustrations inside the book too. And there's like they're kind of there's not like a lot of them. It's not like a picture book, but they're kind of spattered throughout it, just kind of to add something.
And was it something like did you propose an idea to it, or did she just come with the cover on her own?
I basically was just like, here's some good scenes in the book, and just kind of let her go.
Oh,
And she sent them all back to me, and I just like fell in love with them immediately. She hasn't sent me anything that I haven't fallen in love with and used in some way. So that's kind of been like one of my like favorite parts of this whole entire thing. Was just getting to work with her and like seeing like really seeing someone like in their own like with their own art, because it's like for me, like, you know, us writing is our art, and like for her I get to like watch her use her art to like bring my characters to life, which is like the coolest thing I think that's happened since I started the whole process.
there is no better feeling than just like that. I guess like the feeling of like getting a person that you don't know, because you can get a really cool review from like a person that you know, but like when you get it from a person that is complete rando, you know, some person like Germany,
It hits you here.
it's like, I was like, ooh, okay, life is, you know, even if I didn't sell like 1,000 billion copies, like I was fantasizing when I was as I was writing this, just like that is enough steam in the engine to keep you going. Just, you know, un poquito, a little more,
Exactly.
at least for the next book. Now, to double back on the book one of the series, without getting into too many spoilers, walk me through the plot line, the characters, how you developed it, and again, I mean, like, who are we fooling? Like, so you know, I want to. What was the premise? What's the idea for the title?
um Interestingly enough, the premise of the story kind of came around as I ended up really writing the book kind of almost as like a form of therapy through the years I spent at college. Um, just as a form of like kind of mental exploration more than anything else, I think, of just honestly like the inner struggles I was having with my sexuality at the time.
Hmm.
And I knew pretty much always that I wanted to write about that, but I was always just kind of too afraid to do it. Because it's kind of like and I've said this about the release of the book in general and everyone wanting to read it, all since like everyone I know wants to read it. It's kind of like opening up a raw nerve and telling everyone to poke around in it. Like, you know, it's a lot, but I just like kind of ended up I knew I wanted to tell a story about like the inner turmoil honestly that went along with that, which is how I kind of came up with David in the first place, who's like my main character. um the book, I have two main characters in the book. The first half of the book is from the perspective of one, and the second half of the book is from the perspective of the other. So we spend half the book inside David's head and half the book inside of Andrew's head, and they're two very different personalities. And it's basically just kind of a journey of them experiencing each other, but from both of their perspectives.
Oh man, that's a fascinating idea. And like I empathize with that so much. There were like certain aspects of my book that like I had only told like a certain people about, like the how I developed the characters, and then during an interview, it like brought it like just like came out, and I had to like expand on it. And now that it's out there, it feels like a little weird because like now people are gonna read it. It's like, oh shit. Well, now when you read that, and I specifically gave you the spark notes of like what happened.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
the thing, you know, what's weird though, it's like it feels like awesome because like you said, it's like this is your art. So like the fact that you quite honestly have like a part of your, you know, thumb and like your toe ring in there, and like, you know, like there's sections of you in that book now.
Yeah.
It feels like tied to you, like, you know, like on like a soul level. It's like that is your like yours forever.
exactly. And then you know that it's like you said, you know, you people are going to read it and they're immediately going to be like, huh, where this come from? And they're going to come to you. They're going to ask.
Yeah.
And so you find yourself like explaining yourself a lot, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. And in a lot of ways, it's become very, um, I would say, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. In a lot of ways, it's become kind of therapeutic in itself because it's kind of like getting a massive weight off of your shoulders
Hmm.
that you've been kind of keeping there for a long time. But yeah, I mean, it's still new though, because my release was only a week and a half ago. So I'm still like taking it in, and I've never done this before.
The 16th,
Um,
right?
yeah, it came out on the 20th.
The 20th. You dropped it on a Sunday?
Yeah, I dropped it on Sunday because it was the first day of summer.
Oh, I dropped mine on 21st. We're twinsies. I dropped mine
Oh my gosh.
on the day of the summer solstice. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I was like, that seems like a good summer promo. And then also I realized after I made that decision that June, you know, I thought about it because I kind of forgot that June was, I was so like hyper focused on the release. I was like, oh, June is Pride Month too. So,
Oh yeah.
and it was, so that was kind of like almost like written in the stars, like in a lot of ways. So it kind of
I
it
just
worked
realized
out
that
on,
too.
yeah, it worked out on multiple levels, honestly.
Yeah, but like now I'm fascinated with the idea of basically a polarity shift between your main characters and your
Yeah.
focus. And if I can be completely honest, I'm fascinated because I'm quite literally writing a story like that right now. And it was one of those things that I had never written a story like that before. So it was like one of like, you know, I'm wearing like the leather jacket and like the sunshades. Like I've never done this before, man. First person, of course. I'm not. But it's an interesting concept because how did you deal with two characters that are going out with one another? Like I'm assuming there's a lot of like points that intersect with one another. So how did you change those interactions from, you know, side A of the track to side B?
It was definitely difficult because one of the, like when you've written an entire half of a book from one character's perspective and then you also have to flip into another one, you have to get into a completely different person's head. And
Hmm.
you've already kind of like established this like flow, like, you know, you've gotten like I got really comfortable with David because David is so me. Like that's like the point of the character, like that, or like not the point of the character, but that's like where so much of it came from, was that I was putting so much of myself into him. And then I had to flip over to Andrew, who is a completely different kind of person. And I had to almost take a step back and like get to know my own character in order to even be able to write from his perspective, because I had to get into his head, and I didn't want to write Andrew the way I wrote the way I wrote David.
You know what's the thing that got me too is that like even idioms, right? Like when you write like a thing and you make like a simile to something, oh like oh this is like that. One
Yeah.
character wouldn't describe something the same way another character would be. I think to me that was the hardest part of writing two different
Yeah.
point of views. Like the little nuances that you yourself put in just like, you know, to talk. And it's
Yeah.
like not everybody does that. Like you even if you just go off like how you talk, when you go to a different character, you have to not do that anymore. Like it's learning curve, you know, especially with
It's
self-publishing and like learning like on your own.
yeah, exactly. It's definitely been interesting. The self-publishing thing in general has just been one giant adventure. um, but yeah, I would say figuring out how to, I think that was like one of the biggest challenges I had the whole time, was figuring out how to get inside of Andrew's head after I became so settled inside of David's head. And I plan on writing all the books in the series the same way. So it's just going to be this constant back and forth of me like getting comfortable with one and then having to shift to the other.
Ah, oh my God, you gotta love it. But when you go about writing book two, which is the current process that you're in, right?
Yeah.
So how are you going to take it as the series? So book one, who are we? No, wait, who are we fooling? I
Yeah.
almost messed it up, right? I don't know why I thought like who are we following like that. There's like my brain just like immediately flipped those around. But who are we fooling? right?
Yeah.
Available now, Amazon, pick it up, paperback. It's on Kindle Unlimited as well, right?
It's on Kindle, and then it's also on Barnes and Noble.
Perfect, right
Yeah.
there. And again, you can just go on the website mentioned earlier, and it'll be on the bottom banners. Check it out, buy it. The cover alone, I mean, just for the cover alone, it looks awesome.
I know, it's
But
really cool.
so book one is following the advancement of the relationship between these two characters. What is the premise for book two?
So interestingly enough, I've got like the bare bones of about 4 books. um Book one is primarily it's mostly a story about my 2 characters meeting and how their relationship evolves and how they come to either be together or not be together. I will not do spoilers. But book 2 is simply just kind of a follow-up to book 1. I don't want to give too many things away. But it's where, as opposed to book 1 where it's kind of a get to know you, book 2 is going to be more of a, okay, now we're here, now we're in it, now we have to learn how to like go on with life. We're over that angsty beginning of a relationship aspect that book 1 is. So it's basically just it's supposed to be just different stages of this one relationship through the whole series.
Oh, and how are you going to title book two?
I actually have that in the works right now. I'm still kind of debating on whether or not I want all the books to have a question as a title. Because I remember, I think it was my brother. Yeah, it was my brother who first pointed out that was like his favorite thing about it. He's like, I love the title. He's like, I love that it's question. And he asked me if I was going to make that like a theme. And I haven't really thought about it yet, but it's an interesting concept. But then I have to like think about questions, and I haven't decided if that is what I'm going to do. It might not be. So it's a work in progress for that, for sure. But I might not know until the book is done.
From an artistic level, I would love it if it were like if the first two, like out of a trilogy, if the first 2 books were a question and the last one was a statement.
See, I like that too. That's a good plan.
Like who are we fooling? Who are we alone? Like, and you kind of like develop like how like the character, like maybe the characters like a long distance relationship, and it's like them having to deal with their love, but also like, you know, not having to have like that constant like physical thing of like another person. And then
Yeah.
like I don't know, who are we, period. I don't know. Who are we?
This is
Oh
who we are.
no. Yeah, this is who we are. Boom. Man, that's a phenomenal concept. Now, do you think you have any inspirations that you pulled from TV, from movies, from books, or even plays? I mean, you said that you're into something you're interested in.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say. It's kind of hard to say. I've always been one of those people that really separates the mediums, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that I have a lot of influences in terms of movies. I definitely have books that I think inspired me. I Am the Messenger, honestly, is one of them. Um, in terms of, I think more than anything, I would say like my writing style is influenced. I really like John Green too. I would say like Paper Towns and Looking for Alaska was a big one. Like those. There's another one I'm forgetting.
Looking for
Will
Alaska.
Grayson.
Is that like Raising Arizona?
No. Looking for Alaska is a young adult book. And the more I talk about it, the more I realize I read a lot of young adult. But I would say my book isn't a young adult. I wouldn't classify my book as a young adult book, but I find young adult books very inspiring because that particular age range, I would say like late teens through your early 20s, is such a like high impact stage of your life where you find so much of yourself. And I think that's like probably the stage I'm most interested in writing about, honestly. And that's one of the reasons why I'm looking forward to writing this series, because I get to kind of go from like the first book alone takes takes place over the course of 4 years. And I really like the idea of growth throughout the whole series and like watching, like letting people grow with them.
My God, I honestly just like zoned out and thought about how crazy it is, the age gap of like 18 to 28.
It is
Like
like
it
10 years is a long time.
no, but it's the metamorphosis. I mean, that really
Yeah.
is like a caterpillar to a butterfly, or the inverse, depending on the person, you know. But God, and just like I mean, for as far as like a writing aspect, from an art aspect, the amount of things you can pull off that alone, it's an endless pool. It's an ocean of
Yeah.
ideas and inspiration. Uh, Now, I'll be honest with you. As far as the whole thing of like not mixing the contents together, not mixing like the ideas together, I've always felt like everything kind of like morphs. Like inspiration can come from like anything. You can get inspiration from like, you know, like watching like an ant go at it in a tree thing, and you can start like thinking about how that would act as like an alien species on another planet. You never like, you know, inspiration like comes from like wherever. Now, it might have not been an inspiring thing, but do you have like a particularly favorite romance from a movie or a TV show or anything like that?
Ooh, that's a good one. Let me think. Good romance from a movie. I mean, obviously I did screenwriting and playwriting, so like I love movies, but I'm trying to think. I would say mm, I Call Me by Your Name is like one of my like top 3 favorite books of all time. And the movie ended up being I'm pretty critical of like when books I love get turned into movies, but that's like one of my favorite movies I've ever seen. Um, I'm trying to think of another good one.
It's a very low key movie, but have you ever seen Mr. Nobody?
Is that the one with Jared Leto?
Yeah,
Yeah, I like that movie. That's a good
yeah,
one.
that is a good one.
That's a good one. I like that. Oh, Eternal Sunshine.
Yeah,
I
that's a good
like
one.
that one. That one's very sad.
Very, very
um,
sad.
but like when I think of like love stories, that one always like pops into my head for some reason. Um, I think just because it's just the heartache I automatically associate with it, which I don't know why. Um, I'm trying to think of there's so many good ones. I liked Silver Linings Playbook. That's another one I really liked.
That is a good one,
I'm
actually. Yeah.
Yeah, because um that's another book. I have that book like here because I just think that's such a good book, and it's a really interesting take on like mental illness, which I think
Mm.
is a very like important focus. So I like that one as a love story too. I just, there's so many I could like name right now. I feel like I could just like spur on and on.
Weirdly enough, I think one of my favorite romances, well, not even like I guess romance, but like along like derivative, Scott Pilgrim.
Okay, I just watched that. Like not for the first time, but
Movie
like
hits.
recently I rewatched it. It's so good every time.
Uh Look, I mean, like I'm not even a punk rocker. I'm furthest from it. Uh and like you know, nothing about rock. I mean, like not that's like not my shit. But that intro, dun, 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 lemonade the station. Like it's like, yo, I
Yeah.
get pumped. I mean, I want to go to that show. Like it's like I don't know what it is about that movie, but to me, what I always thought was like awesome about it is that like the final boss, quite literally, he pulls out the sword of love and loses. Then he pulls
I
out
know.
the sword of self-respect and he wins. And it was like, what more, what better like representation of like honesty of like what life is like to me. What I think that's what those movies always hit at, like the Eternal Sunshine. Those movies is like, for as much as you can get infatuated with another person, if
Mhm.
you don't have that at home, you're fucked.
Exactly.
Like if you can't look in the mirror and be okay with like what is there, there is nothing you can add to left or right of you that's going to make that feel better. Like you got to be okay with yourself, you know.
Exactly. And that's interesting because that's like one of the main key points like in Who Are We Fooling that when I wrote it. And that was one of the reasons why I made it take place over so many years because I was like, this is definitely a story that needs to establish that, okay, maybe we're not meant to be together right now, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're never meant to be together, but maybe right now is not the time because maybe I'm not in the right place in my life because maybe I don't love myself enough to be able to love another person. And I think that that's such a key like factor in actually like being like getting yourself into a healthy relationship in general, um is knowing that you've reached a point where you accept yourself. And I think it
Yeah.
takes a really long time to get there for everybody. You know, nobody just is just automatically there.
And it's weird too because like I feel like it takes you a long time to like understand like your own signs. Like you'll start
Yeah,
getting jealous out of nowhere, and like you'll immediately think that's like the actions of another person. Is but like it's like you zone it in. It's like wait a minute, but that's like me though. Like how do where's that energy coming from? It's like you're
exactly.
insecure, and like that like and like it's insane that I think that like even though I'm not a romance writer and that's not like necessarily my forte, I think romance is like up there with just like any. It's like the most abundant human emotion. It's, you know what I mean? And to like,
Yeah.
even if you're not a romance writer, to like omit it from your writing is just like insane. Insane.
Yeah, it's like that whole every story is a love story thing, you know?
Yeah.
Like in so many ways that's 100% true. And I think that's another reason why I'm like drawn to the genre, because like in any pretty much any book I've ever read, I feel like there's at least an inkling of a love story in there. Like just even a little bit.
Yep. Percy Jackson. I will never forget in all my life. I can't even tell you how long it's been since I read that book, but there's a part in there
So good.
that it's like I think book 5. It's like the the fight of New York and like it's the whole thing. Spoiler alert if you somehow haven't read that damn book yet. But uh there I think like the enemy. I even remember. I think it was Nico took like Annabelle, like like Percy's girl,
Yeah.
and then like Percy's obviously like losing his shit, like trying to find her. And when he finds her, he said that he took his shield and mushed it so hard into the kid's face that like his face became a squash potato, like tomato. And it was just like maybe it's like the Spanish passion in me that it was just like, yeah, that's what's up. That's what's up. That's what you do. You get your girl back. Stop fucking around with my shit.
No, exactly. Oh, that's such a specific scene too.
Yeah, yeah. It's engraved. I couldn't tell you what happened before or after that, but it was just like that thing of like it was like, nah, what's up? Because like um I always tell my friends like weird is just what is abnormal. If I like leave my like car door unlocked 98 days in a row and then on the 100th day I leave it, I like lock it. That's weird. Even though it seems like a normal thing to like lock your car, why would you ever question that? It's weird because like it's not like what is normally happening.
Yeah.
Percy doesn't do that, and then he does that. So it's like, oh, that's weird. Even though you're in a war that seems like relevant, he just never took it to that level until it was like compromised by like the love of this girl. Loved it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, that's funny too, because I love the Percy Jackson books.
Yeah,
They're so good.
I'm
And
looking at
actually
3 of
how
them right now.
they're so good. And like that was like one of the ways I found the girl who does my art for my books is she does Percy Jackson fan art. And it's beautiful.
Oh my god.
It's so good. It's so good. And I remember messaging her and being like, I know you do Percy Jackson, but and it's just brilliant. I've been meaning to like reread those.
I
It's been like since high school.
every so often I'll just like crank it open. Specifically when I was doing a lot of my writing, I referenced Percy Jackson. Like that was like, because again, like there's no class for this shit. You just start writing, like, you just like pick up the laptop one day. And in your case, you pick up the stone and you crank it open and you open up Word or whatever the heck you're using, right? And you just start typing away. There's no like rhyme or reason. There's like nothing that you know of. So I just picked up books that I liked and was like, oh, that makes sense. How do you deal with that here? Okay, sounds good to me. And of course, like you go through like 9,000 iterations because you realize that like you have to find your own voice. It's not just like uh it's not even just a thing of like words, but also punctuation is like part of your voice. And like the type of things that you use, an M dash versus a comma seems like inconsequential, but when it's like your voice, it matters.
It
um
does. Yeah.
Now, what do you think was the hardest obstacle that you faced in not just the creation of the plot, because you said that a lot of it was inspired from your own tales and life and whatnot, but what about the technical aspects of it, the editing? Well, you already said the cover was actually pretty cool, so I guess that's the check. But what are the X's?
Yeah, the art was like the smoothest sailing through the whole process. I would say 100%. Like the editing was like nobody likes editing. Like like let's just be real. It's like actually a nightmare, but we all know it's going to be a nightmare. We get through it. Um my brother is an English teacher, so I had kind of help there. He ended up doing it for me. So and like that was interesting too because I got to have like a lot of good conversations with him through that. The biggest issue I had that was just like a nightmare, like I would be like in tears thinking I was like I'm never going to get this book published, was me trying to format my book myself. um I got like InDesign, like Adobe InDesign, and I watched some YouTube videos and I was like, I can do this. This will be fine. It might take me a while, but I can do this. Nothing.
Now you're talking about specifically turning it from what, a Word doc into the EPUB, right? Yeah, that
Just
is
into a
cancer.
book. Yeah.
That is cancer right there.
It's actually the worst thing I've ever done.
That is,
And
yeah, that's short
I
firm tuberculosis right there.
it's you know, like actually, that's like kind. It had me like I really honestly was like, I'm not gonna get this done.
Yeah.
I didn't think there was any way. I got it all done myself, and then I exported it and everything was backwards and I couldn't find any help online. And I ended up like after like a month of doing that, I ended up like going on Facebook and being like, does anybody know how to use this thing, or does anybody know what to do, can help me? And my friend Spencer hopped on and was like, yeah, got it. And he literally has done all of it for me. He did like my EPUB formatting. He did my paperback formatting. He's doing my audiobook right now. We're doing an audiobook of the first book as well. And he just kind of like Supermaned in and saved the day, because I don't think I would have been. I don't know how I would have gotten through it. I learned from my mistake there. I was very overconfident.
Yeah, that's my life. And then you get like that cold splash of water in your face, and you're like, ah. You
Yeah,
get the clown
it's
nose just like slowly drifted on your thing, white paint on your fucking face,
yeah,
wig
yep,
slaps on, honk, clown.
yeah,
It's unreal. But same,
humbling.
yeah, the exact same thing happened to me, but I ended up just going on Fiverr. And like I talked to I found like this guy and he was like, oh, so you want everything done? I was like, listen, I have absolutely everything done already. Like the formatting
Yeah,
is done. I just can't convert this bitch. For the life
yeah,
of me, I just can't. It's like I open up in PDF, and honestly, I wish I could just sell the PDF of it because it looks great on my phone and looks great on the computer. I wish we could just do this PDF game. I don't know what Amazon's trying to mess around for, and I just can't get into EPUB. And like he just fell hard for me. Didn't even like charge me. I was like, oh my god, you're a saint. But then of course I realized 9,000 errors, so like I had to redo the EPUB at least 5 times, I think, until what is actually up right now. And
yeah.
I still could do it one more time if we're being honest. If we're being
Oh
completely
yeah, I remember emergency texting my friend Spencer like the day before it was supposed to like be released. Um, and just like panicking and being like, oh my god, I found like 4 spelling errors. Like panicking, completely panicking. And he's like, it's okay, we'll do this. And he was in the middle of like driving from Iowa to New York to move, and he still got it all done for me. Saint. Don't know. I don't even know how like I deserve any of that. But oh, it's just absolute panic. And then but then when you hit that like submit button and it's done, you're just like, it's in the universe, it's gone.
because
It's out of my hands.
you have like that weight the entire
Oh,
time that like I don't know, like it really affects my sleeping too because like I don't know if like you're the type of like animal that I am, but like I'll like go late into the night, sleep little, and then wake up and still have like that urgency, like there's my house is on fire. Like, oh, I didn't do enough last night. And then you like
yeah.
continue on with your day with that same like power. And it just like never it never goes away. But then I gotta be honest, when I hit that publish, I got a drink, You know, I went, started watching some Netflix, started playing with my dogs. I mean, like, who cares? Gives a fuck. I'll go get some drinks tomorrow too. Like, and then of
Exactly.
course Saturday I'm gonna wake up and be like, oh my god, I need to start book 2. What's going on with me? Oh my god, I'm such a loser.
Yeah,
And the
exactly. What
cycle.
am I doing with my
Yeah.
life?
What am I doing? An author? God damn, you have an engineering degree. Uh,
Oh,
um,
I have a theater degree. This is all I have.
no, I'm telling you, it's not. Well, you can't say it's all you have. I mean, like it's unreal the type of things. I believe my boss in California, like I had like an engineering degree. Like my boss, like boss's boss, like a couple lines up. Like I think he went to school for like liberal arts. I don't even know what. Like just like something like just some random shit, just like English. I don't even know what. And he was like the head of the engineering thing. It's like, dude, what? Experience versus degree is so. I just wish you were. I wish we were told that at like, again, it goes to the Great Gatsby with the whole American dream. Like you're just like put on a train and just told to move forward, and you really do
Yep.
not think about it until like later on. That's why 18 to 28 is such a crazy time.
It's an
Like,
epic time.
yeah, like what's my favorite to see is like the young professional, quote unquote. That's like the 23, it's like the 23-year-old, and they like have like the awesome lease and like like always like going to the clubs at a certain time, and like everything seems like so picture perfect ideal, but then it's like
Mhm.
the 27-year-old that's like living like the, I guess, like the realistic life of that kind of like
Yeah,
what, like when that starts like coming on its head and you start realizing I don't know, like that whole thing is so interesting. It's like I'm sure you've seen that meme of like the difference between like a freshman, like a senior at a party, and the freshman's wearing like a little like high heels and like a pencil skirt. Freshman
yeah,
there, seniors there with like sweatpants and like still talking to guys, still being sociable. It doesn't matter, like whatever. Uh,
exactly.
I think that is like the perfect thing. Is like you just, I don't know, and I honestly don't even think it's our fault. I think it's just like societal. It's just like we just like been told XYZ for all this time, and I think we're now starting to realize it not is necessarily have to be XYZ, which is why
It
I
does
think
not.
like COVID is actually our superhero like origin story for a lot of people. It's like the wake up call for like a lot of people. Like, yeah, my 9 to 5 is nowhere as secure as I thought it was. I need to focus on shit that makes me happy. Like, what is any of this bullshit? It's really awesome. Really,
It
really
is
awesome.
it is interesting because like I was in a completely different job before, like 2 months before COVID, and I was there for years, and I was miserable and I hated it so much. And like 2 months before COVID, I was like, you know what? And I talked to my fiance. I was like, I'm really miserable. I want to quit. I want to go back to Starbucks and figure out what I want to do. And he was like, that's totally fine. And I was like, cool. So I did. And then COVID hit. The timing could not have been worse for that to happen, for me to go to Starbucks, but I did it. Um, and I would not have, I don't think I would, that's not even, that's a lie. I don't think, I know I would not have gotten my book done if it hadn't, if COVID hadn't happened, because I was like, like the store closed. I didn't work for like 3 months when COVID first hit. And I remember sitting at my home and being like, I'm not going to work for months. What am I going to do? And I had that story on my computer, and I just like sat down one day and I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get done. We'll see how far I get. I've been avoiding it for too long.
Oh my god! Again, that's to me. That's why like art is just like the highest form of just like anything. It is the rawest form of like human emotion. Especially in like a world that we live in today where it's like all politics, where like literally they will tell you one thing and what is actually happening behind the scenes is so starkly opposite of whatever they're saying. But art,
Yeah.
there is no bullshit. Like whatever the person was feeling and thinking about that day is what you are getting. Uh, and if you're not, and if the artist doesn't do that, then literally it's not popular art. Like it flops. Like there's something innate that you just know when something is genuine. It doesn't even have to be told
Yeah.
to you. You just know.
Yeah. You don't have to be told like this is good for you to like it.
Yeah.
Like it's like a natural organic emotion that you feel.
Yeah, I always thought, especially that the whole thing with like screenwriting, I always thought acting was interesting because I never noticed bad acting when I was a kid. Whatever you told me, you were telling me as a kid, okay, okay. like you could like say your lines as badly as you wanted to, but like in my head, it was like, oh, that's how that character was written. They're like awkward and talk weird. I don't know. Uh, like to me, that I just accepted that, and then you like start getting a little bit older, and you start realizing the power of like good acting because they're conveying
Yeah,
emotions. You know, Interstellar. Again, to bring that up when he's like crying in the thing, dude. If you're not crying with them, go to a doctor.
I know
What?
that. Oh, that
I
movie was brutal. I cried in the theater.
brutal.
I remember
I did
crying in
too.
the theater.
I know. I'll admit it. I watched that movie twice in the theater. I saw it regular, and then I had to go see it in IMAX.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
IMAX. Interstellar would have been great in IMAX.
intense.
Yeah.
I got intense. Like when they went to the wormhole, like you, like I actually, I was like, oh shit, this is this is crazy.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
that was so good.
yeah.
I
Oh
might
my
have to
god.
rewatch Interstellar now. We're talking about it so much.
Oh my god. No, it's and again to me, and it kind of harkens back to what we were talking about with like horror. It's like all genres meld together with like things that you're passionate about, which is like the whole thing that I was talking about with like inspiration. Oh god. Um.
Fixing.
Oh no, like that. That was probably just.
Ah,
Oh cool. Um.
dog.
Oh, you. Oh man, that's awesome actually. um. No, but like just the way that different genres all melds together in like really good pieces of art and just like everything comes together. Do you think that you'll ever start melding genres yourself? Like when you're done with the series, you know, who are we fooling? Who are they fooling? Who am I fooling?
All of them.
Yeah. When you finish the series, do you think you'll hop on to another thing? Do you think you're gonna stick with romance? Is that your bread and butter?
I have other ideas for other romance stories, so I think I'll always come back to it. But I also have like an idea or two for some uh kind of like some horror related stories because I've been working on it because it is kind of like a bucket list task for me is I want to write one good horror story or at least one horror story that I'm happy with just because it is like in terms of like overall it's just my favorite genre to read or anything like that and it's like my favorite movie genre like it's like I like it's just my favorite in general so I'd like to at least be able to publish at least one good horror story that I'm satisfied with. We'll see how that plays into where I've settled here um, with what I write. But I think I can pull it off and kind of morph them together.
Yeah, I think you could too. Why not?
Confidence. Got it. I got to
Yeah,
tell myself I can do it.
yeah, definitely. Now, opposite of that, I feel like I tried to write a short like a horror story, and to me, I think it's like thematically horror thing. Because again, it's like existential. Like if you sit back and realize what's going on to the character, it's pretty scary. But I just don't think that I hit the nail on the head, honestly. Um, when it comes to horror, what are your favorites? Like, have you seen the Haunting of Hill House on
I love
Netflix?
the Haunting Hill House.
Ooh, my God! I'm not gonna say it because like that's like still recent enough that people listening on might have not watched it, but that twist at the end, oh whoa whoa!
That was that was like oh, that was such a good show. I loved that show. I'm such a like big fan of like I mean that's kind of like stemming obviously from like uh just I feel like the haunting and like that like general story has been done like a few you know they always kind of come back to it but just like that adaptation of it in general was just so good and I love
Intense.
that they did it I love that they did it as a series and not a movie
Yes.
because I feel like book like anytime you're adapting anything from like a book medium to TV or movies like it's like I feel like that's like one thing they always like fall into the trap is they decide to do a movie and then they give themselves 2.5 hours to tell like this whole story that needs so much more time than that.
Not only do I agree, but like there are just so many thematic and just like literary like this isn't too much of a spoiler, but just on a literary level, the little thing that he starts off the thing with, it's like, oh, the house stands upright, its bricks lined up evenly, like the people that walk alone. So like he starts with that like the show starts with that passage and ends with that passage, same exact passage except for one word that he changes at the end. And I think it's like the beginning passage is something like, and everything that walks here walks alone. And at the end of the show it goes like, and everything that walks here walks together, like showing that, like, you know, they kind of like hit like a some type of spiritual type of thing. And oh my god, I mean, things like that, that like you can write a horror and still, like, I don't know, I guess kind of feel like, oh, that's crazy to me. Because like
I know.
in essence, like that's what it ends with is a romance. If you think about it, it's a romance story. It's not a romance like Romeo and Juliet between like two people. Although I guess the romance between the husband and the wife is pretty intense, because they actually generally seem to really love each other too. But to me,
Yeah, and
it's
that whole thing is so sad too.
yeah, yeah. But to me, it's more of a family romance. You know what I mean? Which is just still romance. You know what I mean? Uh,
It's the every story is a love story thing.
yeah, like
Like whether it's like love between siblings or love from children, like a child to your parent or vice versa, like there's always a love story, regardless of whether it's romantic or it's platonic or it's just friendship. Like, and I think that that's so interesting. And that's the other thing um about horror that I think is so interesting is, like, I feel like horror is one of those genres that can have so many other little genres stuffed into it.
mm-hmm.
Like it's, you know, like it's not just scary and that's it. Some of them are, but like the good ones, like the really good ones, there's been some good
Cabin
ones the
in
past
the
few years.
Woods, I think, has to be one of my favorites.
That's one of my favorites too.
Just like how it like,
Brilliant.
yeah, it no, I mean, quite to a definition brilliant, because they literally poke fun at every single thing. I mean, the girl that had sex and the stoner were the last two people alive, which is the exact opposite of every single horror movie you've ever seen in your entire life. Uh, and the fact that like the stupid stoner kid was actually right the entire time, which again, which is the exact opposite of every horror movie you've ever seen in your life, and like they just like purposely pointed out. Um, but you actually are right. Like the recent ones have been really good. Have you seen The Hunt?
Yeah, I saw that. That one was interesting.
I
I
think that's the
enjoyed that one.
yeah, I think that's the best female like protagonist I've ever seen in a movie. That woman says, like, she has like 5 lines of words in that movie, and you are
Yeah,
fully behind her.
I know. It's true. No, it's true. And then there's like I'm trying to think another really good I'm a big fan of Ari Aster, so I really loved Hereditary and Midsummer. Um
Midsummer is a
I
problem of a movie.
see everybody has
It's
like
so
I've
good.
noticed everybody's always like 50-50, like they either love it or they hate it. I loved it. Um but those were like two of the like strongest like female driven storylines I've ever seen in terms of like the script and the acting. They were ridiculous.
Like I don't know. They're just so much about that movie, and just I mean, like the cinematography, like the
Yeah,
psychedelic scenes. Huh. I mean, it gives you a flashback. You're like, oh shit, what was in my drink earlier? You know,
I know. Is that tripping? I don't know.
yeah, man, like that is crazy. But to kind of wrap up the show, I think a
Yeah,
really fun question to ask you and also to ask the listeners is, what is your favorite unexpected romance movie?
unexpected romance movie.
Yeah, like it's not like,
Ooh,
if you were to go to a like a blockbuster, those aren't around. But if you were to go to a virtual blockbuster, go to the romance aisle, this would not be in the romance aisle. But you would consider a romance, unexpected romance.
you know, honestly, okay, this is gonna sound really random, but I'm a really, really big fan of Quentin Tarantino,
Yeah.
like all time favorite. I think that Kill Bill's Volume 1 and 2, hear me out, is an epic love story, not just an epic revenge story. If anything, the two like go hand in hand.
With who? Love between
Both love between
and
the
and
bride.
BB, yeah, the bride and BB, or Bill.
Both,
Elaborate.
because there's obviously so much need for vengeance between her and Bill, but there's also that very obvious, like, the reason she is so vengeful is because she feels so betrayed, because the two of them were in love, and the reason that he basically passion killed her like, or attempted to, was, you know, like, his own bitterness, really. But it's like that betrayal from that person you think loves you the most on her end, you know, like, her perspective on it. She didn't, and I think she says that at one point in the second movie. I know that, like, you know, I think she says something along the lines of, like, I know what you're capable of doing, but I never thought you could do it to me. And like that line in itself says everything that you need to know about, like, how they felt about each other. So, like, once again, like, yeah, you would never find it in the romance section, but like, there's a love story there.
Damn, I might have to rewatch those movies.
They're so good. And
They
plus,
are
like, you get,
so good.
and plus you go from like a classic kung fu movie to a spaghetti western, like, it's just fun.
No, I mean, just like everything about the animation, the random animation, you
Yeah.
know, Yishi Ray, what's her name?
Oren
Ren?
Ishii.
Oh, yes. Oh my God. Like her whole background story and the
Oh,
whole
it's so good.
animation behind it.
Yep.
You know what? And to kind of bring it back to like the literature thing before we kind of sign off,
Mm-hmm.
my favorite thing about that, and it's actually, I love that you brought up Kill Bill. I mean, like, you're singing my song, because that actually influenced a lot of my writing, not just for like all the aspects of, like, you know, switching of like being confident and like an ability to change between genre, as long as like you're making the entertainment, like as long as you're making the story entertaining, and two, still keeping up with your character development. You can do whatever you
Yeah,
want as long as like you have your emotional through line, right?
exactly.
But to me, Bill and one, not that like, not, I'm not gonna be like that type of person to say Kill Bill 2 wasn't a great movie, but to me, Kill Bill 1 is the best representation of a villain, because you never ever
Sure.
see this man.
See, yep.
You hear his voice and you see his hand playing with something meticulously as he picks up the phone. And then when he hears something he doesn't like, he just stops his hand. And like, you feel that, you're like, oh shit, what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
Is he gonna pick it up? Is he gonna throw it at me? Oh my God, am I in the movie? Like, you, like, it's, your emotions immediately become like visceral. Off of
Yeah.
nothing. Off of nothing. You're not even seeing the person, you're intimidated. Don't even
Yeah.
know what they look like.
And you don't even get her name until the second movie. Yeah.
Just it is,
It's the way he executes those things is genius. No
yeah.
one else does that like him.
The first scene, that it's like the top view of like him and what is her name?
Uma Thurman.
No. It's
Which
Vivica
one?
A. Fox, but what is her name in the movie? Was it
Oh,
Anaconda?
there was
She was Black Mamba.
yeah, she was Black Mamba, and then there was Cottonmouth. I don't remember.
Cottonmouth was Ren.
Orenishi,
Yeah.
and then they all had different
Viper
snake
was the
names.
girl. Yeah, Viper was the girl with the
Was
patch.
Ellie Driver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which and then obviously like, like the whistle scene, and Homegirl has
Yeah.
the medical patch on her eye. Like,
Yeah.
that's the thing you gotta love about Quentin Tarantino. He's a troll too. It's like, dude, come on. How did she
Everything is
go?
visually just
Yeah. Oh my God. Because like the scene before is that she goes into the hospital dressed like normal, and she does like, you know, like the cartoon thing that she like goes and beats up a thing, and then she walks out with an eye patch. It's like, dude, where you get the eye patch from? That's not a fucking nurse outfit. Like, but you don't
it's so
question it.
good though.
It's the Tarantino thing. Oh my God. But this has been an amazing talk. There's amazing everything. Who are we fooling? Out now, Amazon, get it. I'm gonna turn it over to you. Do a little elevator pitch for your book. Where can people find it? You know, reiterate where people can find you on Instagram, social media, and your website, if you could.
Yeah, my book one of the Seeing Stars series, Who Are We Fooling? You can get it on Amazon in either Kindle, or you can get it on paperback, or if you don't want to go to Amazon, you can also get the ebook on Barnes and Noble, and I am on Instagram at Wendi B Dennison, also on Twitter, same handle. And you can also go to my website, wendybdennison.com, and all the links to my Amazon and my Barnes and Noble page are there as well. So you can just get directly linked over there from there.
And you heard it here first. Book 2 is in the making. You can follow her on Instagram in order to get the progress and just to understand the journey to publication. And there really is nothing more interesting than the journey to publication for indie publishing. It is fires and a little bit of fire extinguisher, and then just more fires. That's all it is.
Exactly.
Until the bread comes out and it has a little like burnt crust in it. We're over there like chiseling it away as hard as we can before it releases.
You're basically that meme where the dog is sitting with the fire and he's like, everything is fine.
Everything is fine. With the party hat on, we're okay.
Yeah.
So again, this is the end of the podcast, AR's Tales, aka the A.R.T podcast. I've been A.R. This has been Wendi. Thank you again for coming on, and check with us when we have our next episode, Mondays and Fridays. Peace out.